Well, Nintendo Retro Studios, they finally did it. We've been waiting years for it. Metroid Prime 4 got its big reveal coming next year. Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is what it's called now. And I think this just kind of caps off a summer that makes me feel that I miss the E3 days. Obviously, it's great that we had a couple of decent showcases, but we did have some disappointments alongside all of that. But the E3 days, I think we took for granted, and I guess those glory days are just long behind us. Now, Xbox, who was, I guess you could say, one of the standouts of this summer, has already outlined some plans for Gamescom. Yes, it looks like even more reveals, gameplay presentations are coming, hopefully some release dates for some of the games that are supposed to be coming later on this year and also in 2025. But alongside that announcement, we also got PlayStation, who announced that again they're going to be skipping Gamescom, which is the same thing they did last year. There's an assumption from a lot of people that a PS5 Pro announcement is coming in the next couple of months, and they may be saving that for their own showcase, which hopefully gives us more of an outline with all of the games that are coming in the second half of the PlayStation 5 this console generation. Now, Electronic Arts, they've been a company that's had some interesting stories the last couple of years in terms of their success and failures, but I guess the EA executives continue to make lots and lots of money, as it has been revealed that EA executives earned $60 million in 2024 despite layoffs and office closures. This is a report coming from Game Developer. EA's named executive officers collectively earned over $60 million during the last fiscal year. The biggest earner was EA CEO Android Wilson, who took home over $25 million after helping the company execute on key strategic and operating objectives. And some of the notable stories that they're talking about with the layoffs and shutdowns is the fact that, well, earlier this year, EA laid off more than 600 employees, 5% of its workforce, and they also scrapped Respawn Entertainment's Star Wars first-person shooter game. And furthermore, it was also announced that EA was shutting down Ridgeline Games even before they produced a title. This was supposed to be a single-player Battlefield campaign. It was supposed to be released by them, and it just never came to be. And we actually saw one of the lead developers, one of the heads of that company, take aim at Electronic Arts for how they treated them. So, moral of the story, don't trust Electronic Arts, and yes, these executives just fail upwards. It just continues, and it always happens. Now, Blizzard and World of Warcraft has had a lot of departures the last couple of years. The Blizzard of old no longer exists, let's just be honest here. And we have now another massive departure being announced. VGC has the story. Warcraft's general manager has left Blizzard after 12 years. John Haidt, he was the Warcraft franchise general manager, and he revealed that he was resigning from Blizzard after more than a decade with the company. He had overseen all game development and operations for World of Warcraft, Hearthstone, Warcraft Rumble, and Warcraft RTS games for the past 3 years. Said on X that he was leaving the studio in search of something new, which feels like the explanation I've seen from every ex-Blizzard developer for why they're leaving the company, which I think is just a nice way of saying they want to do something else that doesn't involve Blizzard. More power to them, I suppose. Now, while Xbox did definitely have an excellent showcase, it has been a crazy year for them, and there's definitely a lot of question marks in regards to how they're running this company. In particular, there's many question marks surrounding the shutdown of Tango Gameworks, one of the few studios that had massive success stories for them. And we've so far really not gotten any clarity on this front. Sarah Bond, an Xbox executive, gave a lot of word salad in an interview with, I believe it was Business Insider, and then we saw Phil Spencer in an interview with IGN do pretty much the same thing. They're circling around the issue and not actually addressing it. But Xbox's Matt Booty, another one of those executives who oversees all of the Xbox studios, he implied that Tango Gameworks' closure was largely due to the leadership change. This is what he specifically said in a conversation with Variety's Strictly Business podcast. The Xbox executive was asked about the closure of Tango. He said, "I won't get into the real sort of nitty-gritty details on, what went into the decision, mostly out of the respect of the people there, just because, there's a lot of work that went into delivering Hi-Fi Rush, which was a great game and, did well for us. I guess not well enough. I think the thing to be considered is that for us, it's as much a forward-looking situation as much as it is looking back on one certain game. There are a lot of things that go into success of a game. What leadership do you have? What creative leadership do you have? Is the team the same team that shipped something successful previously?" And that is pretty much seems like to be their answer. Booty seemed to be referring, at least in part, to the departure of Tango Gameworks' founder, Shinji Mikami last year. He had led the company since 2010, and when he left the company, he said that he was more than happy with the leadership that he left in hand, but I guess Xbox felt differently, and they shut down the studio, as I guess they just didn't think success was going to be coming in the future. No matter what, it's not a good look, especially because Xbox has been trying to make a mark in Japan, and this definitely is going to make a lot of Japanese developers, publishers, studios not want to work with Xbox. And a lot of people also have taken issue with this remark because it seems to be throwing blame on Mikami leaving the company for the reason why the entire company was shut down. Just not a good look overall. Now, Star Wars Outlaws is one of the most anticipated games of the year. Myself, I'm definitely looking forward to it. It hits on a lot of things I want from a Star Wars game, but it is made by Ubisoft, and some of the previews that came recently are kind of concerning. We had this from Nerdstash. Star Wars Outlaws hands-on preview deja vu from a long time ago. The tropes are strong with this one. Eurogamer. After a worryingly dated hands-on with Star Wars Outlaws, Ubisoft's galactic open world feels less exciting than expected. A long time ago. Digital Trends. Star Wars Outlaws might be a little too close to Uncharted for its own good. PC Gamer also had this. Star Wars Outlaws has the same problem as every modern Star Wars thing, playing it way too safe. Now, we did see some other previews coming from outlets like VGC and IGN that had different impression from this, but it wasn't glowing reviews. And this leads to a response coming from Ubisoft in regards to these previews. VGC has the story, asked about those negative reactions in an interview following Monday's Ubisoft Forward Showcase. Star Wars Outlaw creative director Julian Garrity told VGC he hadn't had the chance to catch up on the newly published previews. He also welcomed comparisons to Naughty Dog's work. I mean, for me, it wasn't necessarily our reference points, he said, of the Uncharted series. It's such a wonderful game to be compared to, though, so if you're going to be compared to somebody, it might as well be one of the best in the industry. Naughty Dog and what they do is absolutely brilliant, so I'll take it, but it wasn't the point of origin. While some of the gameplay chosen for the Summer Game Fest demo might seem familiar to players, Garrity described it as an appetizer for what's to come from Massive Entertainment's open-world game. I think coming into a show like this, while you're closing a game in terms of production, you have to make a lot of choices, and our producer was like, you get one demo of all the shows that were going to go during this year, so Gamescom, Comic-Con, etc. So we'll spend a lot more time in those things, so this is a big appetizer, a bit of an appetizer. It's a starter rather than the main course for the game. I think we have a very compelling overall game, and it's just part of it is represented here. And we'll have to see what happens, but I will say that these impressions for Star Wars Outlaws seem to be a little everywhere. That isn't exactly encouraging. Now, another upcoming Ubisoft game which has had a lot of controversy surrounding it is Assassin's Creed Shadows, and we had a developer responding to a remark that Elon Musk said on Twitter. Speaking to journalist Stephen Totillo's GameFile, Assassin's Creed series vice president executive producer Mark Alexis Cote was asked about a tweet Musk posted on X regarding Yasuke, one of the game's protagonists. Musk wrote, "DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion kills art." Cote replied that he had seen the tweet and was tempted to respond to Musk, but ultimately chose not to. That tweet generated emotions that the first thing I wanted to do was go back on X that I had deleted and just tweet back. And I just took a step back. I had a mindfulness app on my phone, and I did a bit of mindfulness to try to explore the emotions that this tweet created. For me, Elon, it's sad. He's just feeding hatred. I had a lot of 3-word replies that came to mind. And he later said about Yasuke and his importance within the story of Assassin's Creed Shadows and the concerns and doubts about the character. What Elon says is not the game that we're building. People will have to play the game for themselves, and if within the first 11 minutes and 47 seconds they are not convinced of what we're doing, we can have the discussion. Now, Ubisoft has also been in some other news in regards to Assassin's Creed Shadows, as they have been accused of stealing a banner from a Japanese reenactment group for Assassin's Creed Shadows. This is an article coming from That Park Place. A member of the group was informed about the black flag and confirmed it was indeed the group's flag. He said, "I heard a little bit about it, but it seems that our Rifle Corps flag was used as the background for the concept art for AC Shadows. I actually took a look at it, and when I zoomed in, I could definitely see the black flag that we use. Honestly, I'm not sure how to react." And he continued later saying on Twitter that he is considering legal action. He's unsure of the steps that they're going to be taking forward. He did reach out to Ubisoft Japan for a response, and so far it doesn't seem like anything has been provided to them. His final response on the subject was, he said, "Thank you for all the comments regarding support through crowdfunding and other means. I am currently consulting consulting with the higher-ups in the unit. Personally, I feel that the best support would be for the people to see the Rifle Corps' demonstrations in person and for them to have more opportunities to perform. I will keep you updated on any progress with the situation, which could be legal action against Ubisoft for stealing their flag. The future of the Fallout franchise, there's many questions in regards to what Bethesda is planning, because right now all we see in the future is, well, the Elder Scrolls 6 and maybe Fallout 5 in 7 or 8 years. There were FTC documents that indicated remasters for Fallout 3 and Oblivion were on the way, but it's unclear if those projects are even alive to this day. Now, Bethesda's Todd Howard was asked in an interview with YouTuber Mr. Matty Plays about the chances of a remake or remaster for Fallout 1 and Fallout 2, and he said, pretty much point blank, it won't be happening. So if you were looking forward to seeing those 2D games being made into these 3D games, unfortunately, it's not going to be happening from Bethesda, although modders seem to be working on a Fallout 2 remake, so maybe there is hope that in an unofficial capacity we see that in the future. Now, in regards to specifically Fallout 5, Bethesda's Todd Howard did say that they do not want to rush this. Howard said Bethesda's willing to take its time with the next mainline Fallout game in order to get it right. For other Fallout games in the future, obviously I can't talk about those right now, but I would say sort of rushing through them, or we need to get stuff out, is different than the work we're doing in Fallout 76. We don't feel like we need to rush any of that. Right now, the Fallout TV show fills a certain niche in terms of the franchise and storytelling. I totally get the desire for a new mainline single-player game, and look, those things take time. I don't think it's bad for people to miss those things as well. We just want to get it right and make sure that everything we're doing in a franchise, whether it's Elder Scrolls or Fallout or now Starfield, that those become meaningful moments for everybody who loves those franchises as much as we do. So if you were looking for Fallout 5 to be coming anytime sooner, it definitely doesn't seem to be an indication that that's going to be happening from Todd Howard and Bethesda, but hopefully we do get some spin-offs in between that time, which remains to be seen at the moment. Now, Bethesda's Todd Howard did recently talk about some of the controversy surrounding Starfield. He was asked about the paid mod situation, and this is an article coming from Insider Gaming. Bethesda Game Studios recently found itself in hot water again concerning Starfield. With the recent launch of the Creations platform on Starfield came a slew of paid-for mods, with Bethesda Game Studios stuffing some content behind paywalls locked down tight with Starfield creation credits requirements blocking the way forward. The Trackers Alliance mission called the Vulture, which was put behind a paywall costing 700 creation credits, around $7. It's the second part of a line of missions, and the biggest concern here is the first part was free to consume. And again, speaking to Mr. Matty Plays on his YouTube channel, he said, "We hear that feedback too. First of all, I'll say that the stuff gets priced based on things that we've done both in Creation Club and then in Fallout 76, and we're always trying to look at what else is out there, really make sure we're giving value to everybody," which I feel every AAA game publisher says is an excuse for their $20 color blue microtransactions, and what we're not, hey, we definitely will adjust. The one thing I want to say in the Trackers Alliance that was really an attempt to something we did in Creation Club, that we'd say, hey, you get this special outfit and you get this special weapon. We wanted to put them together and then thought, let's go to the extra mile and wrap those around a quest. But now we definitely see the feedback, right? And that's not what we want to do at all in terms of, oh no, this looks like a faction that we're chopping off and then selling for 700 credits at a time. And so I do think we're going to take a look at that and how we deliver content like that, and whether you're charging pricing or breaking it up or what we should do there. So great feedback from the community, which Todd Howard's an executive. I don't really care for responses like this because he's been criticized heavily over the years. They were criticized when they tried doing paid mods around 2014, 2015. They backed off of that, and then they did it again a couple of years back. And responses like this, there's been so much controversy with Bethesda and microtransactions. This one saying, oh yeah, great feedback, just it doesn't mean much to me until actions are actually made, and it remains to be seen what they're actually going to do in this regard. Black Myth Wukong is by far one of the most anticipated games of the year. It's coming from a Chinese developer, Game Science, and it's right now actually on top of Steam wishlist charts because of the recent gameplay previews, the trailers, the demos. Everything about this looks like it really could be a sneaky Game of the Year contender. But there has been some controversy in regards to this game, because last year IGN published a scathing takedown of the studio, accusing them of sexism and misogyny. This report coming from That Park Place mentions the fact that the game hit the top of the Steam charts despite IGN accusing the game developer of what I just said. The duo of journalists reported several posts have surfaced from Chinese social media site Weibo written by individuals from the studio that contain multiple references to that. They also stated that this was coupled by recruitment posters by the studio produced in 2015, which featured images and headlines that point to a culture of ingrained sexism in game science. The article provided no evidence to these headlines or posters. What they gave was examples of lots of jokes that I don't think Western cultures necessarily align with or understand. And we actually have this specific, here's the specific article coming from IGN, and a lot of people take issue with the phrasing of this piece. IGN spoke to several women familiar with gaming culture, not actual employees of the studio, in China. In the eyes of many female players, game science has a notably negative reputation. A lot of that is considered yellow journalism. These aren't actual sources from the studio citing any examples of sexism. And even on Twitter, IGN got community noted. The community note saying the sexist quotes shown in the article are poorly translated. Accurate translations show the statements being vulgar but definitely not sexist. IGN reporting on these fallacious, unverified claims again are yellow journalism, which CNs were made to combat. Now, we have seen other individuals pointing out that there is right now a boycott campaign against Black Myth Wukong because of all of this. Here's an example given by a Twitter user, Pirate Nation. In case you want to try Black Myth Wukong, the game is sexist. Their games are not for women. They do not need women. These are two articles about it, and they cite IGN, and they also bring up the hypocrisy of this because, yes, there's many female employees at the studio. Now, I will give one example from this article that IGN brings up. This is supposedly a company co-founder, and this is what he said here, and this is the translation that IGN made. I want to expand my circle and hire more people, get licked until, and then he says that part. But the problem with highlighting Chinese text like this is that many have called these translations into question, such as this specific quote I just went over. It's said to be a used idiom in the Chinese language as a colloquial expression used humorously or sarcastically to describe a situation where excessive flattery has an overwhelming and paralyzing effect on someone. The use of such metaphors can be found in informal speech on Chinese social media often, and that context gets lost when you see an article like this or a hit piece from IGN. And that's the problem when you have this lens of comparing Eastern, Western cultures and remarks like this and the slang, stuff like that. And as other users said, we're all quoting the English translation. For a bunch of gamers who care about accurate translation of foreign source games, I think we can do better. If a world leader fluent in Mandarin can give a speech in Chinese and inadvertently say he wanted China and Australia to have mutual that, I think we should give the benefit of the doubt here on the translation. And then another user saying, well, I think this report is a joke, loads of mistranslations, like how could they have mistranslated you will be used to it to you can that with it. It is clearly an intentional mistranslation to fit this narrative. The whole article is taking things out of context. These journalists must have never been to China and don't know Chinese language and use machine translations and didn't even try to understand Chinese internet slangs. And that's the big thing with all this. A lot of people are accusing IGN of not understanding the slangs and the way that, again, Chinese culture is. And the problem is that IGN is putting a lens of, Western culture, Western civilization on Eastern culture. And these accusations are falling flat because of the fact that, yes, these are vulgar jokes, some of them, but they're being made out to be a lot worse than what they are. And again, the fact that actual employees, nobody has actually said any, the accusations of this being a misogynistic company, it all falls flat. But it has not stopped IGN from having multiple, and I mean multiple articles just talking about gameplay reveals, release dates by bringing up the fact of this article and the fact that game science hasn't specifically responded to it, which tells you all you need to know about games media nowadays, in which if they don't get a response, they will continue to pester until they get some sort of change or differences or something to appease them. Shadow of the Erdtree is by far probably the most anticipated game of the year, or DLC of the year, whatever you want to call it, and it actually is the highest rated DLC ever, beating out The Witcher 3's Blood of Wine. According to Metacritic, it actually has a score of 95, and by the time everybody saw these review scores, everybody was kind of like parading, extremely happy by this. Then we get to the actual release date, in which many individuals realize that From Software, who has a reputation for making their DLCs a lot harder, well, they did the exact same thing with Shadow of the Erdtree, and right now the score is actually extremely mixed on Steam. And while there has been a lot of criticism with performance issues, there is just many actually upset with the higher difficulty of this DLC, which is kind of shocking because of the fact that this is From Software, this is their reputation, and also the fact that journalists have been mocked and called out for, calling for these games to be easier in the past, and now we have a lot of gamers pretty much doing the exact same thing. As we have an article here from Games Hub, Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree review bombed over higher difficulty. For a base game experience that feels balanced and fair, this DLC doesn't feel the same way. Player Astival said on Steam, regular mobs one-shotting me, that seems fun. On top of that, more than half of the enemies I've seen are just a base game mob but with more health and deals more damage, and this sentiment continues from many, many individuals. And we actually did see a response coming from the publisher, Bandai Namco, saying this is a suggestion to level up your Erdtree blessing. And it does have to be acknowledged, the timing of all this is impeccable because Miyazaki, the game director of Elden Ring, along with president at From Software, spoke about the easy mode and wanting to make their games easier, the complaint with it specifically. This is an article coming from Video Gamer saying making Elden Ring more accessible and easier would break the game. Hidetaka Miyazaki and the wider FromSoft team have always prided their games on being difficult. If we really wanted the whole world to play the game, we could just crank the difficulty down more and more. But that wasn't the right approach. Had we taken the approach, I don't think the game would have done what it did, because the sense of achievement that players gain from overcoming these hurdles is such a fundamental part of the experience. Turning down difficulty would strip the game of that joy, which in my eyes would break the game itself. And I think what happened here is the fact that Elden Ring reached a much wider audience. And say what you want, the fact that the game is open world, you can do a lot of other side stuff and boost your character up. It is sort of an easy mode, kinda, and the fact that the DLC kind of takes all of that away is what a lot of players are facing and what a lot of players are upset by. And yes, this is Elden Ring, this is From Software's reputation of making their games harder, especially their DLCs, and they've been criticized for that heavily. We saw a couple of years ago with Sekiro, a lot of journalists going after the company wanting easy mode to be an actual feature within these games, and this is the indirect response here from Miyazaki saying that no, this would break their games. And ultimately, I think a lot of people understand this perspective and are okay with it. Anyway, a lot going on in the video game industry. A lot of the showcases have finally come and gone. What are your most anticipated games? I think there are some really excellent ones on the way, especially Black Myth Wukong, which is actually just a couple of months away. Anyway, let me know your thoughts on all the stories we talked about down in the comment section below. But thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video, or if you found any informative value, and consider subscribing for more videos like this, and I'll see you later.